The crystal glasses clinked against bone china as Edith set the table for their mandatory Sunday dinner. Everything had to be perfect, as always. The Aldrich family image needed to be maintained, even if it was just for show. Winifred Aldrich, though her family barely acknowledged the Aldrich part anymore, was the disappointment who chose to work in technology instead of joining the family's luxury car dealership empire. She was the black sheep who wore jeans to country club meetings and suggested modernizing their accounting systems when she was just 19. Winifred, her mother called from the dining room, her voice carrying that familiar note of disapproval. "Your father wants everyone here by 6 sharp, and please wear something appropriate this time." Winifred glanced down at her casual blazer and silk blouse. The outfit probably cost more than her mother's entire dining set, but Edith would never know that. Winifred had learned long ago to keep her success quiet, to let them think she was struggling in her little computer job, as they called it. If they only knew the truth, she had been 3 steps ahead of them for years. While they bragged about their 5 dealerships across the state, she was building something much bigger. But tonight, everything would change. They had forced her hand, and now it was time to show them exactly who they had been looking down on all these years. Winifred arrived at 5:55 p.m., parking her modest Volvo behind her brother Godwin's shiny new Porsche. He had always been the golden child, following in their father's footsteps, playing the part of the dutiful son. He was also running their business into the ground with his gambling habit and risky investments, but heaven forbid anyone mentioned that at Sunday dinner. The house was exactly as it had been since Winifred's childhood. A sprawling colonial mansion that screamed old money, even though their family's wealth only went back 2 generations. Her grandfather had built the dealership from nothing, but her father, Aldrich Aldrich, preferred to pretend they had blue blood going back centuries. "You're almost late," her mother said by way of greeting, eyeing Winifred's clothes with barely concealed disdain. "Almost isn't late, Mother," Winifred replied, hanging her coat in the foyer. "How's the new country club membership going?" Edith stiffened slightly. They didn't know Winifred knew about their rejection from the Preston Valley Club, the 3rd such rejection this year. Their social standing wasn't what it used to be, though they were desperately trying to hide it. In the dining room, Godwin was already seated, his wife Millicent beside him. Both of them looked like they had stepped out of a luxury car commercial. Winifred's father stood at the head of the table, swirling his whiskey like he was starring in his own movie about wealthy patriarchs. "Winifred," he nodded curtly. "Glad you could tear yourself away from your computers." Winifred smiled, taking her seat. If he only knew that those computers had helped her build a tech empire worth billions, or that she owned controlling shares in 3 major software companies. But tonight wasn't about her success, it was about their failure and the choice they were about to make. "Now that everyone's here," her father began, setting down his glass with practiced authority, "we need to discuss some family business." "Here it comes," Winifred thought, maintaining her calm expression. "The dealerships are entering an exciting new phase of expansion," he continued, though she could see the strain around his eyes. "We're planning to acquire 3 new locations by year's end." Winifred knew this was a lie. Their latest financial reports, which they didn't know she had access to, showed they were barely staying afloat. Godwin's gambling debts and failed side ventures had bled them dry, and their attempts to compete with modern car-buying apps were failing miserably. "That's wonderful, dear," Edith beamed, passing the roasted potatoes. "Winifred, you really should reconsider joining the family business. It's not too late to give up this coding phase." Winifred took a small serving of potatoes, noting how Millicent's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass. She knew about Godwin's debts, had probably been the one writing checks to cover them. "Actually," her father cleared his throat, "that's part of what we need to discuss, Winifred. Your grandfather's trust fund. The one you've been using as collateral for business loans," Winifred interrupted quietly. The room went silent. Her father's face reddened slightly. "How did you?" he started, but caught himself. That's privileged information. Is it? Winifred took a sip of water. Like the 3 rejected loan applications this month, or the foreclosure notice on the downtown dealership? Godwin's fork clattered against his plate. Father, what is she talking about? Nothing, Aldrich snapped. Winifred's obviously been poking around where she doesn't belong, but that ends now. He straightened in his chair, attempting to reclaim his authority. We're cutting you off, Winifred. No more trust fund, no more family support. Clearly, you don't understand loyalty or family values. Edith gasped appropriately right on cue. Millicent stared at her plate. Godwin tried to smirk, but couldn't quite manage it. Winifred set down her water glass carefully. Before you continue, Father, maybe you should take a look at this. She pulled out her phone, opening a particular folder she had prepared for this moment. What's that supposed to be? He scoffed. The truth, Winifred said simply, turning the screen toward him. About who really owns Aldrich Automotive Group, all of it. As her father's eyes scanned the document, his face went from red to white faster than she thought possible. Because there, in clear corporate documentation, was proof that his daughter, the one he was about to cut off, had secretly become his company's majority shareholder 6 months ago. And that was just the beginning of what she had to show them. The silence that followed felt like a vacuum, sucking all the air from Edith's perfectly decorated dining room. Aldrich's hands trembled as he held Winifred's phone, his eyes locked on the screen that showed exactly who owned his precious empire. This is impossible, he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Is it? Winifred took her phone back, swiping to the next document. Like it was impossible that Godwin lost $2.4 million at the Belial last month, or impossible that Mother has been forging signatures on loan applications. Edith's wine glass slipped from her fingers, splashing red across her pristine white tablecloth. Godwin looked like he might vomit. How did you? Millicent started, but Winifred cut her off. How did I know, or how did I acquire controlling interest in a company that's been hemorrhaging money for years? Winifred pulled out her laptop, opening it to a presentation she had prepared. Let me show you exactly how the daughter you dismissed built an empire right under your noses. The screen displayed a simple timeline, starting 8 years ago. Remember when I suggested modernizing our systems, Father? When I said cryptocurrency and tech investments were the future? You laughed, called it internet funny money. She clicked to the next slide, showing her first company's valuation. $500 million. That's just the beginning. She continued, watching their faces drain of color. While you were busy buying country club memberships and covering up Godwin's gambling, I was building something real. You're lying, her father found his voice. These numbers are all verified, Winifred interrupted, by the same accountants who've been trying to warn you about the dealership's imminent collapse. Would you like to see their latest report? She clicked again, displaying the devastating financial analysis of Aldrich Automotive Group. Red numbers filled the screen: debts, losses, failed investments. Did you really think nobody would notice the shell companies Godwin set up to hide his casino losses? She asked, turning to her brother. Or the way Mother has been moving money between accounts to cover the bounce checks? Godwin slumped in his chair, his perfect posture finally breaking. Millicent reached for her purse, probably checking for her car keys, planning her escape. But here's what really interested me, Winifred continued, clicking to another document. The loan applications, 3 different banks, all using grandfather's trust fund as collateral. The same trust fund you just tried to take from me. Edith's hands fluttered to her throat, a nervous tell Winifred remembered from childhood. Winifred, darling, we can explain. No need, Winifred cut in. The SEC will handle the explanations. They're very interested in some of these transactions. The word SEC hit like a thunderbolt. Aldrich's face went from white to gray. You wouldn't, he whispered. We're family. Winifred laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family? Was it family when you told potential investors I was mentally unstable because I warned them about Godwin's schemes? Or when you tried to have me removed from grandfather's trust because I refused to invest in your failing expansion plans. She stood, walking to the window that overlooked their perfectly manicured lawn. 6 months ago, I could have reported everything, the fraud, the embezzlement, the forged documents. But instead, I did something better. She started buying shares through various shell companies, small amounts at first, then larger ones as their desperation grew. Every time Godwin needed to cover a gambling debt, every time Edith's credit cards got maxed out, Winifred was there, buying up pieces of the company at bargain prices. Why? Godwin finally spoke, his voice cracking. Why not just turn us in? Winifred turned back to face them. Because grandfather built this company from nothing. He believed in honest work, in building something real. And watching you destroy it piece by piece, I couldn't let that happen. She clicked to the final slide. It showed her complete portfolio, not just the dealerships, but her tech companies, real estate holdings, and investment funds. The total number at the bottom made Edith actually gasp. Aldrich squinted at the screen. That's over $3 billion. 3.7, Winifred corrected quietly. And that's just the liquid assets. Millicent stood abruptly. I need some air. Sit down, Winifred said firmly. Everyone needs to hear this next part. Millicent sank back into her chair, looking like she might faint. Tomorrow morning, the board of directors will receive a complete audit of the company's finances, every transaction, every hidden account, every forged signature. They'll also receive my proposal for restructuring. Restructuring? Aldrich's voice had lost all its usual authority. Yes, you have 2 choices. Winifred closed her laptop carefully. Option 1, you all resign immediately. Sign the paperwork I've prepared, admit to your roles in the financial misconduct, and accept the consequences. In return, I'll ensure the company survives and your reputations aren't completely destroyed. The room was so quiet you could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking in the hall. And option 2? Godwin asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Winifred smiled, the same cold smile her father had given her countless times over the years. Option 2 is I step back and let the SEC handle everything. They're particularly interested in those offshore accounts you set up last month, Godwin, the ones in Millicent's maiden name. Millicent's head snapped up, her eyes wide with betrayal as she stared at her husband. Apparently, she hadn't known about those accounts. You have until midnight to decide, Winifred continued, gathering her things. Though given the federal agents currently parked outside the downtown dealership, I'd suggest deciding quickly. Aldrich stood suddenly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. You planned all this tonight. The dinner, everything. No, father. You planned this. Every time you dismissed me, every time you covered up Godwin's mistakes, every time you chose appearance over reality, you planned this. I just took notes and waited. Winifred walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and mother? The Preston Valley Country Club didn't reject your application. I bought it last year and had them blacklist you. Consider it payback for all those holiday dinners you forgot to invite me to. The sound of Edith bursting into tears followed her out into the hallway. But Winifred wasn't finished. There was one more revelation to come. One that would shake this family to its very foundation. She turned back one last time. Before you make your decision, you might want to ask Godwin about the real reason grandfather changed his will 2 days before he died. About the conversation they had in the hospital and the security camera footage I have from that night. Godwin's face went completely blank. He knew exactly what she was talking about, and soon, so would everyone else. The next morning dawned clear and cold, the kind of autumn day her grandfather used to love. Winifred sat in his old office at the downtown dealership, now her office, watching the sun rise over the city he had helped build. The leather chair still smelled faintly of his cigars, a scent that had always meant safety and wisdom to her. Her phone had been buzzing since 5 a.m., first Millicent, then her mother, then a stream of family friends and business associates. She let them all go to voicemail. They had had years to listen. Now they could wait. At exactly 9 a.m., her assistant knocked on the door. "They're here." Winifred nodded, straightening the files on her grandfather's mahogany desk. "Send them in." Her family filed in like mourners at a funeral. Aldrich had aged overnight, his usual swagger replaced by a haunted stoop. Edith's makeup couldn't hide her sleepless night. Godwin looked hungover, and Millicent kept her distance from him, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. "Sit," Winifred said quietly, gesturing to the chairs arranged before the desk. They sat without argument, a first in family history. "Before we discuss your decisions," she began, "let's address what happened in this room 8 months ago." She pressed a button on her laptop, and the large screen on the wall flickered to life. Security camera footage appeared, showing this very office. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., the night before her grandfather died. Godwin entered, looking furtive. Their grandfather sat in the same chair Winifred now occupied. "Turn it off," Godwin pleaded. "No," Winifred said firmly. "Everyone needs to see this." On screen, Godwin paced, agitated. The audio was crystal clear. "You can't change the will, Grandpa. You can't give everything to Winifred." Their grandfather's voice, though weak, carried his characteristic steel. "Winifred understands business, Godwin. Real business, not just appearances. She'll preserve my legacy." "She abandoned the family," Godwin shouted. "She plays with computers while I've given everything to this company." "Given?" Grandfather laughed weakly. "You've taken, boy. Stolen. Gambled. I know about Geneva." Edith gasped. Geneva, where Godwin had lost $5 million of company money in a single weekend. Winifred figured it out. Grandfather continued on screen. "Brought me the proof weeks ago. But unlike you, she wanted to protect the family name, give you a chance to make it right." The next part was harder to watch. Godwin, desperate and angry, grabbed their grandfather's heart medication, holding it out of reach. "Sign it back to me," he demanded. "Right now." Instead, Grandfather pressed the silent alarm under his desk. As security rushed in, he looked directly at the camera, directly at Winifred watching now, and mouthed, "Trust Winifred." He died the next morning. The official cause was heart failure. Winifred stopped the footage. The room was deathly silent. "The police have a copy of this," she said into the quiet, along with the toxicology report showing elevated levels of stress hormones from that confrontation. "You killed him," Edith whispered, staring at Godwin. "Your greed killed your own grandfather." Godwin buried his face in his hands. Millicent had moved even further away from him, her face a mask of disgust. "Now," Winifred continued, opening the first file on the desk, "let's discuss your decisions about my offer." Aldrich cleared his throat. "We'll sign whatever you want." "Good, because what I want is to set things right." She started distributing documents. Over the next hour, she laid out the new reality. Aldrich would take early retirement, citing health reasons. Godwin would enter a private rehabilitation program for his gambling addiction, non-negotiable and closely monitored. Edith would step down from all charity boards, social clubs, and public positions. "The company will survive," Winifred explained, watching them sign page after page. "I've already lined up partnerships with 3 major tech firms to modernize our sales platform. The Aldrich name will continue to mean something in this city, just not what you thought it meant." "And us?" Edith asked quietly. "What happens to us?" Winifred leaned back in grandfather's chair. "You'll receive living allowances, modest ones. Enough to maintain decent lives, but not your current excesses. Godwin's debts will be paid off to prevent legal consequences, but he'll work a regular job, earning regular wages, once he completes rehabilitation." "A regular job?" Godwin looked horrified. "Yes, Godwin. Like regular people. Like I did when I started my tech company, working 80-hour weeks while you were flying private jets to Monaco. She turned to Millicent. You have a choice too. The prenup Godwin had you sign, I've had it reviewed. You can leave now with a generous settlement or stay and accept the new circumstances. Millicent stood without hesitation, placing her keys to their mansion on the desk. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. With that, she walked out, head high, never looking back at Godwin. Aldrich spoke up, his voice rough. Why not just destroy us completely? Why show any mercy? Winifred opened her desk drawer and pulled out an old photograph. In it, a much younger version of her father stood beside her grandfather in front of the first Aldrich dealership. Both were smiling, proud, genuine. Because of him, she said, placing the photo on the desk. Because grandfather believed in redemption. He gave you a chance when you were young, father. Now I'm doing the same. She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. The papers will be filed today. The press release about the reorganization goes out at noon. Your resignations will be described as a planned succession, allowing you all to save face. Don't make me regret this, Mercy. They filed out slowly, shoulders bowed, faces drawn. Edith paused at the door. You're exactly like him, you know, she said softly. Your grandfather. We should have seen it sooner. Yes, Winifred replied. You should have. After they left, she walked to the window, looking out at the dealership lot where she used to play as a child. The morning sun glinted off rows of new cars, each one representing the legacy her grandfather had built and she had saved. Her phone buzzed a news alert. The technology sector was praising the Aldrich Automotive Group's innovative new digital sales platform. Their stock was up 12% in pre-market trading. The future was already arriving. She sat back down in her grandfather's chair, opening his old ledger. Inside, he had written something on the last page, just days before his death. Dear Winifred, power isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself when others give you reason not to. You understand that? It's why you'll succeed where they failed. Love, Grandpa. Winifred closed the ledger, smiling slightly. The empire wasn't just saved. It was transformed, and the daughter they dismissed had become the architect of its future. 3 months later, she stood in the main showroom, watching as their new digital display systems were installed. The Aldrich Automotive Group had become the talk of the industry, pioneering a hybrid model of online and traditional car sales that was revolutionizing the market. Aldrich had settled into quiet retirement, taking up golf and staying away from business entirely. Edith had found a surprising peace in a simpler life, even starting to volunteer at a local food bank. Godwin was 6 weeks into his rehabilitation program, finally facing his demons. As for Winifred, she kept grandfather's chair, his ledger, and his belief in building something real. The billions she had earned in tech were now building something even bigger, a legacy that would honor his name and prove that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's construction. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.